Chapter 106. Below the stage, Wu Zongming turned his head and said to Yi Chen, "Yi Chen, you have to be careful if you run into senior brother Feng. His qinggong is more than that." "I know, don't worry." Among the people present, Yi Chen could see it more clearly than anyone else. However, in terms of qinggong, he really did not need to be afraid of the other party. In the 7th round, Wu Zongming, Zhang Haoren, and Huang Bingwen all lost. Wu Zongming and Huang Bingwen lost because their strength was limited, so they naturally lost when encountering a strong opponent, while Zhang Haoren lost because he encountered one of the top 10 inner disciples, Ghost Sword Li Kuang. Ghost Sword Li Kuang was indeed worthy of the title of Ghost Sword. With just one sword move, Zhang Haoren was defeated. Seriously speaking, the difference in strength between the two wasn't that big. After all, Zhang Haoren was one of the top geniuses in the entire Sky Cloud Martial School, so it was impossible for him to be defeated in one move. However, he could only blame his bad luck. Ghost Sword Li Kuang's sword art was famous for its unpredictability. As long as one's strength was slightly weaker, it would be very difficult for them to withstand even one move. That sword was like a nightmare, there was no way to block it. Zhang Haoren, who had lost the match, stared at Ghost Sword Li Kuang. He couldn't believe that he couldn't even block a single sword. Ghost Sword Li Kuang turned around and said as he walked down the stage, "One more year. Under the core disciples, senior brother Li Kuang is the #1 swordsman. Now that I think about it, I feel that the sword was too terrifying. My eyes couldn't keep up, my senses couldn't keep up, and even my intuition couldn't keep up. It was clearly very fast, but it gave people the illusion that it was very slow. If it were me, I would probably go crazy immediately. Senior brother Li Kuang is powerful, but look over there." An inner disciple pointed at a platform where two people were fighting. The others discussed among themselves. "It's one of the top 10 inner disciples, ranked 9th, dual spear Dong Haohua, senior brother Dong. Who is his opponent? I've never seen him before." "Me too. He seems to have appeared out of nowhere. Is there such a person among the inner disciples?" On a platform. The cold young man was expressionless. He placed his right hand on the hilt of his sword, pulled it out and slashed. Chi! 6 sword lights floated over and covered Dong Haohua's entire body. Dong Haohua smiled confidently. He brandished the 2 spears that were 5 feet long. The spear shadows that filled the air easily shattered the sword light and rushed towards his opponent. Suddenly, Dong Haohua stood rooted to the ground. He lowered his head and saw that the clothes on his chest had been torn open, and a faint trace of blood was seeping out. "I lost. What's your name?" Dong Haohua knew that if his opponent hadn't been merciful, this sword would have taken his life. However, he didn't understand. He had clearly destroyed 6 sword shadows, so how could he still be hit? It was like seeing a ghost. "Li Yun." With these 2 words, the cold-looking youth walked down the stage. He defeated senior brother Dong Haohua, who is ranked 9th, with 1 sword strike. This is unbelievable. When did such a terrifying figure appear among the inner sect disciples? Even senior brother Dong was defeated in 1 move. This Li Yun should be able to compete with senior brother Li Kuang. I wonder whose sword art is better. Not far away, Ghost Sword Li Kuang squinted his eyes and stared at Li Yun's back. Finally, one of the top 10 inner disciples had been defeated. A lot of people who were not powerful enough did not have much hope for themselves, but they hoped to see a second, or even a third. Before the first wave had even subsided, another wave had risen. On the 8th platform, another person had defeated the 10th-ranked inner disciple, Iron-Legged Song Fei. Although Song Fei was only ranked 10th, that was because his fighting style was too tough. If he fought head-on, his ranking would still be higher. On the other hand, Song Fei's opponent also specialized in leg techniques. He only threw out 3 kicks. The first kick scattered Song Fei's leg shadows, the second kick shattered Song Fei's protective Jin Qi, and the third kick landed lightly on Song Fei's chest, leaving a footprint. Song Fei's kick was so light that it seemed natural. If it was just that, it would not have caused such a sensation. The inner disciple who had defeated Song Fei was called Tai Feng. He was 19 years old this year, and he was one of the oldest disciples in the Sky Cloud Martial School. Everyone knew that he was hard-working, but his talent was average. However, after watching his battle this time, he gave people the feeling that he was a master. It was as if he had changed from a moth to a butterfly. This kid is a late bloomer. On the elder seats, an elder sighed. A few elders on the side nodded. Diligence can make up for one's lack of talent. Moreover, when he is extremely diligent, he will be able to understand many things that others cannot. This kid needs to be trained. It is not that I have never seen late bloomers before, but this time, it is more shocking than any of the previous ones. It is like he has been reborn. Wu Zongming asked Yi Chen, what did you see? Why do I feel that those 3 kicks were ordinary, but the strange thing is that senior brother Song Fei could not block them? Yi Chen slowly let out a breath. That is power. Power? Wu Zongming did not understand. Yi Chen explained, the so-called power is very mysterious, and words cannot describe it. To put it simply, he has understood the power of nature, and has integrated this power into his kick art. Therefore, although it looks ordinary, it is unstoppable. After all, in front of the power of nature, human strength is too small. Wu Zongming did not really understand. As the competition went on, the higher the score, the lower the score. So far, Yi Chen had 18 points, tied with Feng Zhongfei and Feng Ping for first place. Finally, it was the last round of the competition, the 10th round. The first round, number 0 against number 28. As soon as the deacon finished speaking, the inner disciples on Yi Chen's side became excited. In the previous 9 rounds, they could already see that Yi Chen was very powerful. After all, in the 10 groups, there were very few people who could win 9 rounds in a row. Besides the 8 seeded contestants, there were only a few others who could do so. Originally, if Yi Chen did not run into Feng Ping, he might be able to win 10 rounds in a row and tie with Feng Ping for first place. But now, it was probably impossible. Under everyone's disbelief, Yi Chen walked onto the stage. On the other side, Feng Ping said casually, "You are not bad." "You are not bad either." What Yi Chen said shocked everyone else. Brother Feng Ping's power is only not bad? Are you kidding me? You can't be so arrogant. Being too arrogant is not good. Let me test your bottom line. Feng Ping recognized Yi Chen's power, but he did not think that Yi Chen could beat him. His body flashed, and he disappeared, as if he had merged with the wind. Yi Chen did not change his expression. He waved his fist to the left, and the fist power and finger power clashed together, making a horrifying explosion sound. However, after that, Feng Ping's attacks became even fiercer. Finger power after finger power shrouded Yi Chen from all directions, and he still did not show himself. In terms of movement techniques, I have never been afraid of anyone. As he spoke, Yi Chen's body disappeared as well. Finger power after finger power turned the stage into a hornet's nest. Pa, bang, chi. On the stage, only fist shadows and finger power could be seen fighting. Because the two's bodies were too fast, and because it was too strange, only a trace of shadow could be seen. This is too fucking strange. How can we watch this? I did not expect this Yi Chen to be so powerful. He was obviously hiding his power before. Someone could not help but say. Brother Feng Ping did not use his real power, right? Chapter 107. Feng Ping did not hear the discussions below the stage, he was completely shocked. Among the inner disciples, there was actually someone who did not lose to him in terms of Qinggong. It's urgent. Feng Ping pointed out with his finger, the air was filled with finger light, the finger light tore through the air, and the sound was endless. Puff 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 puff, Yi Chen's body was instantly pierced through and scattered. It turned out that it was just an afterimage. Your Qinggong is just a so-so. Yi Chen's voice came from behind Feng Ping. Feng Ping was furious, his body was like a tornado, spinning violently, countless finger light beams shot out in all directions, some of them even pierced through the stone pillars at the edge of the stage. Yi Chen's eyes were sharp, his body flashed, shuttling through the countless finger light beams. They were not shot at the same time, there were always some in front and some behind, some fast and some slow. With his powerful body control and speed, Yi Chen was able to sneak in and out of Feng Ping's space. He managed to get within 5 steps of Feng Ping. How is this possible? How can we not hit him like this? Including Xiao Yi and Zhou Rua, all the inner disciples below the stage were stunned, their mouths were slightly open. Those with good eyesight knew that it was impossible to dodge all the finger light beams with just speed. After all, the difference between each finger light beam was very small, so small that it could be ignored. Plus, these finger light beams were not arranged in any order, there was no way to find a pattern. In order to pass through them, one's eyesight, heart power, stamina, speed, reflexes, and the ability to see the big picture all had to be at a high level. On the elder seats, the head elder had a smile on his face. This disciple is not bad, there are not many people who can beat Feng Ping in Qinggong. The second elder nodded. Feng Ping's movement skill is not to be underestimated, but he is still not as experienced as his opponent, he is also not as skilled. There are 3 disciples with potential, it is our Sky Cloud Martial School's fortune. The third elder could not help but laugh out loud. On the stage, Yi Chen threw out a punch, blowing away Feng Ping without hesitation. Yi Chen wins. The deacon who drew the lots was startled, he shouted out loud. Yi Chen was not too pleased with himself. His body slid and he instantly landed beside Wu Zongming. Wu Zongming's blood was boiling as he watched, he said excitedly, "That's great, even senior brother Feng Ping's Qinggong can't match up to yours." He is still unable to comprehend the true essence of the wind, he only has the speed of the wind. Wind was formless and formless, if Feng Ping could comprehend it, Yi Chen's Qinggong would naturally not be able to catch up to him. Feng Ping walked down the stage in a daze. Losing to someone else in Qinggong was a huge blow to him. After all, he was full of confidence earlier and thought that he could easily defeat Yi Chen. The 10th round of the competition ended. The deacon who drew lots reported the score. Group 7, first place Yi Chen, 20 points, second place Feng Ping, 18 points, third place, the top 3 teams in the group stage would qualify for the finals. Feng Ping was not eliminated. Soon, the top 3 of the other groups were also announced. Wu Zongming lost too many matches and was disqualified from the finals. Zhang Haoran only lost 1 match and was ranked 2nd. As for Li Yun and Tai Feng, they were both ranked 1st in their groups. No matter how exciting the competition was, they still needed to eat. It was already noon. The first elder stood up and announced that the finals would begin in the afternoon. In the Sky Cloud Martial School's Inner Disciples cafeteria. I can't believe there are 3 powerful inner disciples this year, Li Yun, Tai Feng, and Yi Chen. Li Yun's sword art is too powerful, I still can't figure out how he defeated senior brother Dong Haohua. Tai Feng is not bad either, he defeated senior brother Song Fei with just 3 kicks, steady as a mountain. What do you guys think? Other than his Qinggong, what do you think about Yi Chen? Maybe his Qinggong is good. But to beat him, one must be in the top 6 of the top 10 inner disciples. Yeah, no matter how good his Qinggong is, if he does not have enough attack power, he will not be able to defeat senior brother Li Kuang and the others. Yeah! Other than Feng Ping, Dong Haohua, and Song Fei, the other 7 haven't revealed their full strength. They haven't even revealed 70% of their strength. It'll be very difficult to win against them. We can't be too weak in every aspect. Don't say any more, I will be so excited that I can't eat anymore. I really want to see the finals. At that time, the top 10 inner disciples will definitely go all out, it will be the peak of the inner disciples. In the afternoon, the martial arts plaza was boiling again, it was several times more lively than in the morning. On the central platform, the first elder raised his voice and said, "The finals will be divided into the elimination round and the ranking round. The elimination round will eliminate 20 people, leaving only 10, and the ranking round will decide the ranking of this year's top 10 inner disciples. Below, Yi Chen heard it clearly. The elimination round had a total of 10 rounds, divided into 3 platforms, but each platform did not have a fixed number of people. In other words, whoever was drawn would go up, and it was possible to choose which platform to go up. After the 10 rounds, the top 10 disciples would become this year's top 10 inner disciples. After becoming one of the top 10 inner disciples, there was still the ranking round, which was the most complicated. It needed a lot of rounds, so let's not talk about it for now. Now, the finals officially begin. The first elder gathered his Jin Qi and raised his voice. Boom! The spectator stands were filled with cheers. Everyone was supporting the inner disciple they liked. The first platform, Song Fei against Jiang Hao. The second platform, Li Yun against Wu Yuan. The third platform, Meng Chong against Feng Ping. There was no suspense in the battles between the first and second platform, but the third platform was more interesting. After all, this was the battle between the top 10 inner disciples. It immediately caused a tsunami of cheers. 6 people went up on the platform. Unsurprisingly, Song Fei and Li Yun easily defeated their opponents, and got 2 points. The battle on the third platform had not yet started. Feng Ping looked at Meng Chong seriously. As one of the top 10 inner disciples, there were 2 people he did not want to meet the most. One was the ghost sword Li Kuang, and the other was the blood shadow blade Meng Chong. The ghost sword Li Kuang's sword art was unpredictable. It was impossible to defend against. If one's strength was slightly weaker, there was almost no way they could pose a threat to him, but Meng Chong was even more terrifying. He had an overwhelming advantage in all aspects. It was almost impossible to meet him. However, Feng Ping still wanted to walk past Meng Chong's blade. No matter what, he was still one of the top 10 inner disciples. If he was defeated by someone with one blade, he would lose face. Meng Chong grinned and said, Feng Ping, are you thinking about how to walk past my blade? Give up on that idea. Your strength is too far away from mine. Meng Chong walked towards Feng Ping step by step. His right hand was placed on the blade's hilt. Dodge! Feng Ping's scalp went numb. He quickly dashed to the side. His body instantly disappeared. You can't escape. Almost no one saw how Meng Chong used his blade. They only saw the blood-red blade light flash past. The next moment, Feng Ping's figure appeared. There was a long and narrow blade mark on his chest, extending all the way to his waist. Huh. After laughing a few times, Meng Chong turned around and walked down the platform. Chapter 108. So powerful. So powerful. Even brother Feng Ping could not take one attack from him. Although senior brother Feng Ping lost to Yi Chen, his movement art is still one of the best among the inner disciples. But he couldn't even dodge a single blade attack from senior brother Meng Chong. The gap between them is huge. This year, brother Meng Chong is even more powerful than last year. Hearing the discussions from the crowd, Yi Chen frowned slightly. The blood shadow blade Meng Chong was indeed very powerful. His blade art was very simple. It was fast, accurate, and brutal. There was nothing fancy about it. But in his hands, it was able to bring out the power that even gods and ghosts would have to run away from. When fighting against him, if one's technique was not at a certain level, one should not try to use techniques. Otherwise, one would die a horrible death. The second Meng Chong got off the stage, the top 10 inner disciples all looked at him with fear. The skinny Iron Fan I Ching forced a smile. I thought I could catch up with him this year, but it seems like I have been left behind. Next to him, Song Fei was surprised. I Ching, you were ranked second last year? What's the point of being ranked second? The gap is too big. He has already reached the top of the core disciples. Top of the core disciples. Song Fei gasped. He knew very well how powerful the top-ranked core disciples were. Although they were all at the late condensing reality realm or even the peak of the late condensing reality realm, the slightly more powerful core disciples could easily beat him with only one attack. Not to mention the top-ranked core disciples, they were the top of the top-ranked core disciples. The fourth battle was Yi Chen's turn. His opponent was called Yang Lai. Once he got on the stage, Yang Lai backed off as far as he could. He wanted to increase the distance between him and Yi Chen. He was afraid that Yi Chen would suddenly disappear in front of him. Yi Chen shook his head and forced a smile. He stood still. When he was 30 steps away, Yang Lai stopped backing off. He held his long blade with both of his hands and threw out 3 blade lights towards Yi Chen's position. Yi Chen moved his body slightly and skillfully dodged the blade lights. He stomped his feet on the ground and released his hidden power. Explode! Boom! The stage under Yang Lai's feet exploded. His body was thrown high into the air and fell off the stage. This was out of everyone's expectations. They had thought that Yi Chen would defeat his opponent with speed. They hadn't expected this to happen. The 5th match was against Zhang Haoran. Although he lost to Ghost Sword Li Kuang, his strength was still very strong. In less than 10 moves, he defeated his opponent and gained 2 points. There was no suspense in the 6th, 7th, and 8th matches. It was just pure abuse, not interesting at all. The 9th battle, Pei Shaoqing vs Tai Feng. Buzz! As soon as the lot-drawing deacon's voice fell, the crowd finally boiled over. Pei Shaoqing was ranked above Ghost Sword Li Kuang in the previous tournament. He had a friendly attitude and seemed to be easy to get along with. Only those who knew him knew that he was like a demon when he made a move. Even Li Kuang was afraid of this friend of his. Tai Feng was the representative of late bloomers. He had defeated Song Fei, who was famous for his leg techniques, in 3 kicks. He had the demeanor of a master and was as steady as a mountain. The 2 of them could be said to be at loggerheads. If they didn't fight, it would be hard to tell who was stronger and who was weaker. Tai Feng, you have to show mercy later. Pei Shaoqing said with a smile. Tai Feng replied honestly, okay. Nobody knew why, but when they saw Tai Feng's expression, everyone wanted to laugh, a knowing smile. This person was not hateful at all, they only admired him, admired his hard work, admired his perseverance, and even more admired his simple and honest, grandmaster-like bearing. Hearing this, Pei Shaoqing's smile disappeared and his heart tightened. His intuition told him that Tai Feng was not easy to deal with. If he wanted to win, he would have to use 120% of his strength. Unknowingly, Pei Shaoqing's palms had turned purple, like a demon. He shouted loudly and pounced towards Tai Feng with a palm strike. Woo 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 woo. The air was torn apart, emitting a mournful sound. Some of the nearby inner disciples' faces turned pale with fright. Tai Feng's expression was still simple, but when he moved, everyone knew that he was not easy to deal with. The pressure from the aura had no effect on him at all. His body slightly tilted and his right leg raised. With just 2 simple movements, Tai Feng's aura changed. A powerful aura gathered and integrated into his body. Break! With a single kick, Pei Shaoqing's palm power was disintegrated. The huge impact forced him to stop his momentum. However, as one of the top 10 inner disciples in the last inner disciple competition, Pei Shaoqing naturally still had energy to spare. His body circled around Tai Feng and suddenly launched a second wave of attack. Demons appear all over the mountains and plains. Woo woo woo. Roar roar roar, the purple and cyan palm wind was like a dark cloud, covering the sky and covering the earth as it moved towards Tai Feng. If it was someone else, they would have broken their mind before the fight even started. This time Tai Feng is in danger. Brother Pei Shaoqing is not Song Fei after all, how could he be so easy to deal with? I wonder how many moves Tai Feng can take. Yi Chen had a different opinion from the others. After Tai Feng's first kick, his aura had already gathered and the one in danger was Pei Shaoqing. Just as expected. Facing the sky full of cyan palm wind, Tai Feng put his tongue under his chin and let out a loud shout. His shout was like thunder, causing the air to ripple like water. One kick moves the wind and clouds, sweeping the world. Standing in the middle of the platform, Tai Feng's aura was limitless as he kicked out. This kick caused a strong wind to descend on the martial arts plaza, accompanied by the majestic power of the kick. it went towards the cyan palm wind. Pop! Pop! The sound of thunder came out, the whole platform was in chaos, people could not look directly at it. The next moment, a figure was sent flying backward, spurting out a large mouthful of blood in the air. It was Pei Xiaoqing. Unbelievable, Typhoon won. How many kicks did Typhoon use? Did you guys see it? It looks like it has 5 legs, but also 9 legs. Why did I only see the shadows of his kicks? Yi Chen smiled lightly. This Typhoon was very powerful, and there were not many people who could beat him. Judging from the current situation, only the Blood Shadow Blade Meng Chong had the power to suppress him. But of course, in a battle between warriors, anything could happen, and the more powerful one might not necessarily win. The elders in the elder seating area looked at each other and smiled. The late bloomer Typhoon was even more outstanding than they had imagined. That move just now was simply too brilliant. The wind stopped, and Typhoon, who was on the platform, smiled and walked down the platform. Everyone could only feel speechless towards this, and they wondered if he was really simple and honest or if he was pretending to be. Then, the competition continued. There were no strong fights like before, the next few matches were all won by overwhelming margins, without any suspense. However, in the last match of the first round, Qing, the Iron Fan, made everyone happy. He waved his fan and countless shadows of his fan danced like dancing butterflies. His opponent did not dare to fight anymore and immediately surrendered. Chapter 109. The second round of the competition was a bit speechless. Out of the 15 battles, 11 of them ended very quickly, almost all of them were the top-ranked disciples beating the bottom-ranked disciples. Yi Chen's battle was not included in these 11 battles, but it was not that far off. His opponent was Dong Haohua, who was not weak at all. Unfortunately, it was Yi Chen who had beaten him within 3 to 4 attacks before he had even shown his real power. There were 2 exciting battles in the third round. The first was a duel between the only 2 female disciples among the top 10 inner disciples of the previous term. The other was Xiao Yi against Li Yun. The 2 female disciples were Peach Hand Zhou Rua and Rainbow Sword Qiu Ruatong. Zhou Rua was ranked 4th, she was very strong, her slender hands looked like they had no bones, but after being touched by her, Qiu Ruatong, who was ranked 8th, immediately vomited blood and retreated, losing the battle. Xiao Yi and Li Yun's battle was too intense, one of them was ranked 3rd among the top 10 inner disciples last time, the other one was a new rising star, both of them did not give in to each other, they were fighting fiercely, even the platform was almost destroyed by them. Xiao Ye's defense and attacking power were very scary, normal sword light could not break through his Jinqi protection, one punch could explode the air in front of him, making Li Yun unable to get close to him. As for Li Yun, although he was a new rising star, he was not any weaker than Xiao Yi, he was evenly matched with the 3rd-ranked Xiao Yi, his sword light splitting martial technique was perfect, the hidden sword light made Xiao Yi even more scared. In the end, the head elder thought that it was too long, so he called it a draw. There were also exciting battles in the 4th and 5th round, the outer disciples who were watching were very excited, their blood was boiling. The 6th round, the 3rd battle. Blood Shadow Blade Meng Chong against Iron Fan Yi Qing. Last year's 1st and 2nd ranked disciples are finally fighting, I wonder who is stronger. You idiot! It must be senior brother Meng Chong. The battle has not even started, how do you know? Senior brother Yi Qing's fan art is so amazing, how could he lose? The one who supported Yi Qing was a female inner disciple. The people beside her rolled their eyes, thinking, another love-struck fool. On the stage, Yi Qing opened his iron fan and smiled at Meng Chong. Last year when I fought with you, I was able to last more than 10 rounds, I'm afraid I won't be able to last this year. Meng Chong said, there is no need to belittle yourself. Do you think that I will let down my guard against you? Hee hee. Yi Qing laughed. Come on, I know you definitely have some ultimate moves, and there's an 80% chance you're going to use them against me. Meng Chong still had his eyes on Yi Qing. His opponent had already fused his techniques and actual combat to perfection. He looked beautiful, but not flashy. It would be impossible to defeat him with a single slash. Step by step, Meng Chong walked toward I Ching. Just as he was about to take his 10th step, I Ching moved. In fact, he had no choice but to move. Otherwise, once his opponent found the most suitable place to attack, there would be no room for him to turn things around. The iron fan fluttered up and down, creating a series of illusory fan shadows that flew towards Meng Chong without any pattern. It was as if a large bag filled with butterflies had been accidentally opened, and all the butterflies had flown out. Break! Meng Chong lowered his body and charged forward, slashing down with his saber. Puchi! This saber strike grabbed the weakest point of the countless fan shadows, breaking through them. The blood-red saber gleam easily slashed towards I Ching at an unbelievable speed. This is what a fast saber should be like. Once it moves, it's amazing. I wonder what level that North Snow Quick Saber Lynch has reached. Seeing Meng Chong's saber art, I Ching couldn't help but think of Lynch, who he had met in the Northwest auction house. Both of them were famous for their fast saber arts. If Meng Chong was already this powerful, then that Lynch would be even more powerful. Shaking his head, I Ching knew that he had to work harder. Above Lynch, there were still young Master North Snow and young Master Duanmu, and above him, there was the top young warrior of the Windy Nation, young Master Emerald. Clang! The blood-red saber light was blocked by the iron fan. I Ching's body was knocked back by the impact. Good, since you can take my first saber attack, you can definitely take my second and third. Meng Chong was excited. The blood-red saber light crisscrossed in the air, covering I Ching like a huge net. I Ching tried his best to protect his body with the iron fan. But even so, that horrifying saber light still numbed his entire body and made his blood boil. The 7th saber attack. This saber attack was launched last, but it was faster than the previous few saber lights and cut open I Ching's hairband. I Ching's long black hair danced in the air as he put away his iron fan. I still can't beat you. Just now, he had already used his ace attacks. However, under Meng Chong's saber light, those ace attacks were not as good as his normal attacks. He understood that this was because his ace attacks were not perfect yet. Otherwise, it would not be so easy for Meng Chong to find the flaws in his attacks. However, everything has its pros and cons. After this battle, it would be easier for him to find the flaws in his attacks. Meng Chong laughed and said, being able to force me to use the 7th saber attack is already very good. Beside Yi Chen, Wu Zongming sighed and said, I wonder who can beat brother Meng Chong. After saying this, he glanced at Yi Chen. Yi Chen gave him a mysterious feeling. Even now, he still did not know Yi Chen's real power. Maybe there was a chance. Of course, Wu Zongming was not sure. Let's keep watching. Yi Chen did not make any assumptions. Soon, the 6th round ended. Until now, there were only 5 people who had an undefeated record. They were Blood Shadow Blade Meng Chong, Peach Blossom Hand Zhou Rua, Ghost Sword Li Kuang, Tai Feng and Yi Chen. Although Madman Xiao Yi and Li Yun did not lose, they had a draw after all. They had lost 1 point. After the 7th round, there was one less person who had an undefeated record. It was Peach Blossom Hand Zhou Rua. He was unlucky and met Iron Fan I Ching. After exchanging hundreds of moves, he was defeated by I Ching. Although he lost, his power still made the crowd fear him. In the crowd's anticipation, the 8th round began. The first 3 rounds could barely be considered exciting. When it came to the 4th round, the crowd burst into cheers. The contestants on the stage were Yi Chen and Ghost Sword Li Kuang. If it were in the morning, the crowd would definitely not be cheering like this. However, Yi Chen had been winning all the time, and his popularity had skyrocketed. He had gained a lot of supporters, including some of the inner disciples. On the VIP seats, Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing's breathing almost stopped. It was not an exaggeration to say that this year's Sky Cloud Martial School's inner disciple ranking competition was one of the most thrilling events in their lives. Every time Yi Chen stepped onto the stage, they would be on tenterhooks for a while, afraid to see Yi Chen fail. Although Yi Chen's results had already made them very satisfied, who wouldn't want their children to do better? Fortunately, up until now, they had seen Yi Chen win again and again, and it seemed to be quite easy. But now it was different. Yi Chen's opponent was the mysterious ghost sword Li Kuang. Whether he could win or not was still unknown. Chapter 110. I'm afraid brother Yi Chen is in danger. Senior brother Meng Chong and senior brother Li Kuang have always been able to restrain people with powerful movement techniques. Senior brother Feng Ping had been defeated by the two of them. Unknowingly, everyone had added the word senior brother behind Yi Chen's name. Yes, let's see if brother Yi Chen can block brother Li Kuang's first sword. If he can block the first sword, then he can block the second and third sword. Ghost sword Li Kuang's sword art was unpredictable. As long as one's strength was slightly weaker, it would be difficult to block his sword. Only when one's strength surpassed the opponent's could one win. On the platform, Li Kuang's eyes were cold, his back was straight like a great sword. 30 steps away from him, Yi Chen looked indifferent and calm. I only need one sword to defeat an ordinary person. You are quite strong, you should be able to force me to use my third sword. Li Kuang looked at Yi Chen and said coldly. Yi Chen said, really? I advise you to go all out. Do you think you can force me to go all out with your strength? Li Kuang's eyes became colder. The two stood 30 steps away from each other. One's eyes were cold while the other looked calm. Everyone's breathing stopped as they stared at the stage without blinking. Buzz! The storage ring emitted a faint light and the hidden cloud sword appeared in Yi Chen's hand. He said lightly, if you don't go all out, you won't have any chance of winning. Most of the people were stunned. What? Brother Yi Chen uses a sword, just like brother Li Kuang. This is amazing. Brother Yi Chen didn't take the previous battles seriously at all. A battle between two great swordsmen, just thinking about it makes me excited. Yi Chen suddenly took out his sword. It was a huge shock to the spectators. After all, they knew that without a sword, a swordsman's battle power would be greatly reduced. Only with a sword in hand, could a swordsman unleash his full strength. On the elder seats, a few elders nodded and laughed, interesting. With the hidden cloud sword in his hand, Yi Chen's aura changed. His eyes were as sharp as a sword, capable of penetrating people's hearts. A sharp aura was emitted from his body. Li Kuang was slightly surprised. He really didn't expect Yi Chen to be a swordsman. He couldn't be blamed for not seeing through it, it was because he hid it too well. Under normal circumstances, a swordsman with some achievements would have some qualities of the sword, such as sharpness, coldness, and so on. However, Yi Chen's temperament had nothing to do with these, it looked very ordinary. Of course, he didn't know that Yi Chen had already trained his qi hiding spell to a very high level. Not only could he hide his cultivation level, he could also hide his aura, making it hard for people to see through him. Not to mention Li Kuang, even a clasping Yuan realm sword artist might not be able to see through him. Since you are also a swordsman, that's for the best. Defeating a swordsman is undoubtedly more interesting. I hope you can last longer. Li Kuang's slender right hand was placed on the hilt of his sword. Waves of true qi were injected into the sword, ready to deal a fatal blow at any time. Shoo! Li Kuang moved. His whole body was like a sharp sword that was unsheathed, rushing towards Yi Chen at an extreme speed. In the blink of an eye, the distance between the two had shortened to 5 steps. Ecstasy! Only then did Li Kuang pull out his sword. Once the sword was out of the sheath, the twisted black sword light seemed slow but was actually fast. It seemed to move from top to bottom, like a nightmare, making people unable to tell where the opponent was going to attack. Zhang Haoran's face turned pale. He was defeated by this sword. The pain of not being able to use his power and not knowing what to do was still fresh in his memory. Clang! Under the nervous and excited gazes of the crowd, Yi Chen also made his move. The angle of the sword was unimaginable, it was like an antelope's horn, a divine stroke. Not only that, Yi Chen's sword light was very thin, it was the kind of thin that was condensed to the extreme, it was even sharper. Clang! Li Kuang's first sword was blocked, but he didn't care. He was about to make his second sword to suppress his opponent. But what surprised him was that Yi Chen took the initiative to counterattack. Peak of perfection. The lone peak of 13 swords was only a top-ranked mortal realm sword art, but in the hands of Yi Chen, it was extremely powerful. A stunning sword light pierced through the air and went straight for Li Kuang's chest. Li Kuang took a step back and slashed out with his black long sword, trying to take back the initiative. Yi Chen's eyes were sharp. He twisted his wrist and the sword light exploded in a very small area, layer upon layer, spreading out towards Li Kuang. What? The incoming sword light gave Li Kuang the feeling of a huge mountain, one after another, attacking his mind. At this moment, Li Kuang stopped underestimating Yi Chen, his body rose from the ground and slashed down. Kacha! 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 When the two sword lights collided, the platform was cut into pieces, and the hard stone pillars at the edge of the platform were cut off. This series of actions happened in the blink of an eye. Many people didn't even see how the two exchanged blows, it was so fast that it was terrifying. Such a thrilling battle, every sword is so dangerous, there is no time to react at all. Senior brother Yi Chen is indeed powerful, he easily blocked Li Kuang's first sword and even took the initiative to counterattack. On the other side, Pei Shaoqing and Qiu Ruotong stood together. Qiu Ruotong said, "Your friend is in danger." Pei Shaoqing smiled confidently, "Don't underestimate Li Kuang. In the past year, his sword arts have been improving rapidly, and if I'm not wrong, he has already mastered the 7th sword of the 9 Ghost Shadow Sword. That sword is enough to defeat 3 Yi Chens, and now he has only used 3 sword moves. But I feel that Yi Chen is also not using his full power." Li Kuang's figure floated back and lightly landed on the ground. He solemnly looked at the distant Yi Chen, "I admit that you're qualified to make me go all out. However, it's still impossible for you to defeat me. I'll let you see my true strength now." Li Kuang took a step forward as a sharp chi flow burst out from his body, pouncing toward Yi Chen with an earth-shattering force. At the same time, the black sword light became extremely frightening, turning the formless chi flow into a dense black color, covering the existence of the sword light. 10,000 Ghost Soul Devour. This time, Li Kuang did not hold back. He knew that the 4th, 5th, and even 6th sword attacks would not be able to do anything to Yi Chen. Only the 7th sword attack would have the confidence to defeat Yi Chen without any resistance. The black airflow swept over along with the sword light, but Yi Chen wasn't afraid. He slightly closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, his eyes were like 2 sword lights, tearing through the void. Break! When Yi Chen waved his sword, all the nearby inner disciples who used swords were frightened. For no reason, the swords on their waists trembled, wanting to fly out of their sheaths and merge with Yi Chen's sword aura. No matter how they tried to suppress it, they couldn't stabilize it. Many big shots on the VIP seats exclaimed, "Sword intent. It's actually sword intent, how is this possible?" Chapter 111. In the Windy Nation, only the leader of the North Snow Martial Academy, Xue Wuren, had comprehended the blade intent. As for whether there were other hidden figures, no one knew. Just like the blade intent, the sword intent was also very hard to comprehend. At least until now, no one in the Windy Nation had ever comprehended the sword intent. Among the younger generation, there were only a few people who had a chance. The head disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School, Hidden Fragrance Sword, Zhu Mei was one of them. However, no one had expected that in an inner disciple ranking competition, there would be a nobody who had comprehended the sword intent that all the sword artists dreamed of. How shocking was that? No, he hasn't comprehended the real sword intent yet, it can only be counted as half-step sword intent. On the VIP seats, a cyan-clothed man said slowly. Next to him, a beautiful young lady in a pink dress looked confused. Half-step sword intent? The cyan-clothed man explained, I have seen a sword artist who had comprehended the sword intent in the Rudra nation. That kind of power that could cut through the void was still fresh in my memory. After I came back, I made up my mind that I must comprehend my own sword intent. However, in the past few years, I have only comprehended a little bit of it, but my cultivation has been improving at an amazing speed. The beautiful young lady suddenly understood. No wonder her husband's cultivation was getting more and more profound. It was because he was stimulated by something. However, her husband couldn't comprehend the sword intent no matter how hard he tried, but a 15 or 16-year-old boy had done it. She had to admit that sometimes, a few days of effort from a genius was equivalent to a few years of effort from others. The beautiful young lady was the owner of the Flower Fairy restaurant in the ancient spring town, Flower Fairy. Next to her was her husband, the blue cloud sword artist, Shen Lang. Rumble. While the two were talking, a storm was already brewing on the platform. The half-step sword intent was about 3 to 4 meters long. It sliced through the black chi flow and the horrifying black sword light like cutting a piece of tofu. Then, the sword chi, which was only 2/3 smaller, still had some power left on the ground and flashed past Li Kuang's side. In the next second, the rock wall in front of the VIP seats had become soft, and stone powder was falling down. Li Kuang stood on the spot in a daze. Just now, he felt the presence of death. If it wasn't for the opponent being merciful and deliberately deviating from the attack's trajectory, that sword chi would have definitely cut him in half and turned him into a blood mist with no bones left. Puff! Suddenly, Li Kuang spat out a mouthful of blood. Although the sword chi hadn't hurt him, the half-step sword intent contained within it had made his blood boil. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood, but he felt much better. Yi Chen is victorious. The administrator who drew lots recovered from his shock and announced loudly. Sheathing the hidden cloud sword, Yi Chen turned around and walked away. In the elder seating area, the head elder let out a long breath and said, although it's only a half-step sword intent, and it's still uncertain whether he can comprehend the real sword intent or not, the success rate is still 10 times or even 100 times higher than the others. He has already comprehended the half-step sword intent at such a young age. His potential is limitless. In the future, he will definitely become one of the 4 pillars of our Sky Cloud Martial School. However, we still need to observe him carefully and test his loyalty. Of course. On the other hand, Yi Tianhao and Shen Yuqing were overjoyed. The Duanmu family had a young master Duanmu, and their Yi family had a genius who had comprehended the half-step sword intent. In the future, they would definitely be able to catch up with the Duanmu family, or even surpass the Duanmu family and become the leader of the top 8 families. The others also sighed in their hearts. After today's fight, Yi Chen had become quite famous. Within a couple of days, his name would spread across the entire Windy Nation. Some people were happy, but some people were hiding their evil intentions. A middle-aged man with a scar on his face, who was wearing a navy blue robe, looked down with a hint of killing intent flashing through his eyes. He thought to himself, this kid can't be allowed to live. Otherwise, when he grows up, the Sky Cloud Martial School will surpass the Purple Sun Martial School, and even the North Snow Martial Academy and the Emerald Martial Palace. He is a dangerous person. If anyone knew what the middle-aged man was thinking, they would be very surprised, because this man was not a member of the martial school. Instead, he was a solitary martial artist, named Zhu Liang. He had been famous for decades, and was now at the peak of the early clasping Yuan realm. However, if the leader of the Purple Sun Martial School knew about this, he would not be surprised. Zhu Liang had been the intelligence elder of the Purple Sun Martial School since a long time ago, and was responsible for collecting all kinds of information in the martial world. At the same time, when the Purple Sun Martial School was inconvenient to deal with, he would take care of it. In the past, Zhu Liang had killed a lot of talented martial artists, and had killed those who could pose a threat to the Purple Sun Martial School. Yi Chen, you are so dead. Zhu Liang sneered in his heart, but didn't show it on his face. The fight continued, but in the eyes of the audience, the exciting fight had become boring. Not far away, Song Fei glanced at Yi Chen, and said to Yi Qing, it seems that in this year's Wind Cloud Martial School, only you can compete with Meng Chong. I Ching said, the sword chi combined with the half-step sword intent is indeed very powerful, but it is still hard to say if he wants to win against Meng Chong. Of course, both of them are already at the top of the core disciples, the top 10 inner disciples competition is not that important to them. Plus, the Sky Cloud Martial School is just the Sky Cloud Martial School, there are still the other top 4 martial institutions, and outside of the Windy Nation, there are many more powerful martial institutions. Therefore, you have to look at the bigger picture, being powerful for a short period of time does not mean anything. Song Fei sighed, yeah. The top young martial artist of our Windy Nation, the young Master Emerald, is only ranked 68th in the Hidden Dragon rank, who knows how many geniuses will appear in the next Hidden Dragon rank. The 8th round of the competition soon finished. There were 3 people who had a perfect winning record, they were the Blood Shadow Blade Meng Chong, Tai Feng and Yi Chen. There were 5 people who had a perfect winning record. The 9th round, the 9th battle. The Blood Shadow Blade Meng Chong against the crazy man Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi grinned and said, Meng Chong, this time you are going to lose your first place. It is only the half-step sword intent. The true spirit continent is not dominated by warriors who have mastered the sword intent and blade intent. I, Meng Chong, do not need to master the blade intent to win against anyone. Meng Chong did not care if Yi Chen had mastered the half-step sword intent or not. For him, all he wanted to do was to win against his opponents again and again, to push his blade to its limit. After he finished talking, Meng Chong's aura became even more intense. What a good Meng Chong, he did not fall for my provocation at all. Xiao Yi was planning to use Yi Chen to attack Meng Chong and distract him, but it did not work at all. Instead, it increased Meng Chong's aura. However, Meng Chong was right, learning the sword intent was indeed a way to become powerful. However, there were so many ways to become powerful, and the sword art was only one of them. Plus, Yi Chen's foundation was still not that deep, and his cultivation was also one level lower than theirs, so there was no need for him to be afraid. If that is the case, let's fight. Xiao Yi yelled, he threw out a punch with a thunder-like chi. Break for me. Meng Chong started running, the long blade in his hand had already been out of its scabbard, the blood-red blade light sliced towards Xiao Yi along with the chi. Dang! Xiao Yi was indeed worthy of being ranked 3rd in the last Hidden Dragon competition, his power was not weaker than Yi Qing's, and he was even better at fighting head-on. With only one punch, he had shattered the weakened blade light. The second blade. The blood-red blade light shot up into the sky, it even changed the color of the air. Xiao Yi did not back out, instead, he drew a half-circle with both of his hands, a millstone-sized ball of chi gathered in front of his chest and clashed with the blade light. Boom! The power spread out in all directions, Xiao Yi backed out 3 steps, a little bit of blood leaked out from the corner of his mouth. Off the stage, Yi Chen thought to himself, Xiao Yi is even more powerful than the ghost sword Li Kuang, but he could only barely block Meng Chong's second blade attack. It would be really hard to win against him. Chapter 112. The Third Blade. Meng Chong's long blade flashed in the air. Suddenly, a bright blood-red blade light appeared, bringing with it an unstoppable sharpness as it slashed towards Xiao Yi. So fast! Xiao Yi could only see a blood-red flash in front of him, the blade light was already 1 meter away from him. At this moment, it was already too late to dodge. Furthermore, that was not his style. If he were to take it head-on, he would definitely vomit blood and retreat. Meng Chong's third blade was not that easy to block. Even the Iron Fan Yi Qing could only protect himself from being injured. Roar! Xiao Yi bent his body, a green halo spread out, a huge Jin Qi arm extended out from his shoulder, a fist clashed with the blade light. The Qi energy formed a circle, and suddenly expanded. Crack, 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 crack. The stone pillars that were far away from each other started to crack, it looked like they would shatter if the wind blew. Meng Chong stopped his attack, he did not attack again. The crowd started to discuss. Brother Xiao Yi actually has a Jin Qi arm on his shoulder, this is unbelievable. The Jinqi arm does not look like a human's, it looks more like a beast's forelimb. You can even vaguely see the scales made of Jinqi, and the palm is like a beast's claw, and it is so powerful, it blocked Brother Meng Chong's third blade attack with only one punch, and it was not damaged at all. Looks like when Brother Xiaoyi was fighting with Li Yun, he did not use his full power, he must have saved it for Brother Meng Chong. Li Yun's eyes shone, but he did not say anything. Pop! Something even more shocking happened. A Jinqi arm extended out from Xiao Ye's left shoulder, but it was green in color, and there were traces of green qi rising from it. It looked like a burning flame. Meng Chong, I have never shown this ancient demon's secret art to anyone before, today you will be the first person to see it. Wiping the blood from his mouth, Xiao Yi looked excited. The ancient demon's secret art was something he found in a ruin by chance. It was divided into 3 parts, the first part, the second part, and the last part. He only had the first part, it was not complete, but it was not weak at all, it was comparable to a low-rank Earth Realm martial skill. Ancient Demon's Secret Art. Yi Chen had never heard of such a martial technique before, seems like this Xiao Yi had a fortuitous encounter. Meng Chong glanced at the Jinqi arm and said nonchalantly, I don't care what kind of ancient demon's secret technique you have learned. In my eyes, there are only those who have fallen. Then go ahead and try. Xiao Yi was already 2 meters tall, with the addition of 2 gigantic Jinqi arms on his shoulders, he looked like a giant, an endless pressure spread out from his body, the wind in the plaza seemed to have stopped. What answered him was a series of blood-red saber lights. The saber lights were like crescent moons, and they formed a blood-red wheel that was more than 10 meters tall. The rotating blade aura wheel sliced the air into pieces, rolling toward Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi laughed, he did not retreat, he raised his 2 gigantic Jinqi arms and welcomed the attack. Bang 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 bang, the 2 true energy arms raised their fists and punched the blood-red Dharma wheel again and again. Instantly, red and green energy splattered in all directions, creating a very beautiful scene. Break! Meng Chong's body appeared in the blood-red Dharma wheel, his right arm suddenly emitted a ball of blood-red light, the light went into his saber and he waved it. Swoosh! The green Jinqi arm on Xiao Ye's right shoulder was cut off, it flew more than 10 meters away, it turned into pure Yuan Qi and merged with the air. One of senior brother Xiao Ye's Jinqi arm was cut off. Someone shouted. The others did not have time to talk, they were afraid that they would miss something interesting. Xiao Ye's face turned pale, the Jinqi arm was formed by his Jinqi, it consumed a lot of Jinqi, now that one of it was cut off, the total amount of Jinqi was reduced by 1/3, his blood was boiling. I'll cut off your other arm. Meng Chong did not stop, he flipped his saber and slashed towards the green Jinqi arm on Xiao Ye's left shoulder. Clang! It was as if the saber had slashed onto a well-tempered steel, it created a lot of colorful sparks. If one looked closely, they would realize that the saber had only cut through half of it, it could not cut through. Xiao Yi forcefully suppressed his boiling qi and blood and Jinqi. Both of his arms gathered in the air and pushed out a ball of Jinqi bullet that was glowing with a green light. Meng Chong's saber was stuck on the green Jinqi arm, he could not pull it out. Seeing the Jinqi bullet flying towards his chest, he knew that he could not hold back anymore. He opened his mouth and let out a thunderous shout. Meng Chong clenched his left hand into a fist, blood-red lightning shot out from between his fingers, crackling loudly. Swoosh! The Jinqi bullet was like a punctured balloon, it disappeared into thin air. Yi Chen shook his head, even this could not do anything to Meng Chong, Xiao Yi was definitely going to lose. But to be able to force Meng Chong to this extent, it was already very commendable. Break! The saber continued to attack, it finally cut off the green Jinqi arm, but this green Jinqi arm was very strange, when it was cut off, it immediately exploded into countless of green flames, it grew bigger as it touched the wind, it burned everything. Swoosh swoosh! Meng Chong saw that the situation was not good, his body flew backwards, the platform he was standing on was instantly burned into a glass-like shape. There was blood coming out of his mouth and nose, but Xiao Yi was not too upset, he said, I lost. The 2 Jinqi arms had consumed 2/3 of his Jinqi, plus the Zhenqi bullet from before, there was not much Zhenqi left in his body. He could not fight against Meng Chong anymore. Letting out a breath, Meng Chong said, "To be able to force me to this extent, you are the first one." "Hee, same to you. You still have a battle with Yi Chen. His half-step sword intent is not that simple either. Let's see how you are going to beat him." After saying that, Xiao Yi jumped off the platform. When this battle was over, the other two platforms had also finished their battles. The remaining two battles were not worth watching. They were all inner disciples with very few points. They would definitely be eliminated, including Zhang Haran. It was not easy for him to make it this far. Finally, the last round of battles began. When it was the seventh battle, the heavyweight battle started again. This battle was between Yi Chen and Tai Feng. One of them was a genius sword artist who had comprehended the half-step sword intent, while the other one was the representative of a late bloomer. Up until now, both of them had maintained a perfect winning record. No matter which side won, there would be one less person with perfect winning record, and that person would definitely compete with the Blood Shadow Blade, Meng Chong, for the title of the first inner disciple. Many people were thinking about this in their minds, who was more powerful between Yi Chen and Tai Feng. Judging from the previous battles, it was really hard to tell. Yi Chen's sword chi was indeed powerful, but Tai Feng's leg art was also not to be underestimated. Pei Shaoqing, who was as powerful as the ghost sword Li Kuang, was an example. Plus, no one knew if he had any more powerful skills. Tai Feng smiled and said to Yi Chen, "Thank you for your guidance." "Okay." Yi Chen nodded. To be honest, he was a bit scared of Tai Feng, since he did not have many chances to show his power, so he had to do it himself. Chapter 113. On the stage, the two stood 50 steps away from each other. Perhaps it was because Tai Feng felt that Yi Chen was not easy to deal with. This time, he did not take a passive approach. For the first time, he took the initiative. He slightly lifted his right leg, and a vast force suddenly integrated into his body. Suddenly, the airflow above the square became abnormal, and a fierce wind swept across. On the opposite side, Yi Chen was dressed in a white robe. The hem of his robe was fluttering in the wind like a small boat in a stormy sea. However, when he pulled out the hidden cloud sword halfway, the wind on the square seemed to have been cut into two halves. One half of Tai Feng's side was raging, while the other half of Yi Chen's side was calm. Compared to the huge square, the two of them were so small, like they were floating in the air. However, at this moment, the vast square seemed to be unable to contain the two of them, as if it could collapse at any time. Brother Tai Feng is going to use that kick again. I wonder how Brother Yi Chen is going to block it. Brother Yi Chen's sword chi is invincible. I'm afraid he can cut through Brother Tai Feng's attack with just one sword. I bet that Brother Tai Feng will win. 1,000 gold, do you dare? Why not? I bet that Brother Yi Chen will win 2,000 gold. Me too. Me too. In the spectator seats, some of the outer sect disciples who had different opinions started to gamble with huge sums of money. For them, they could show off their foresight and earn money at the same time, so why not? As for losing, they didn't even think about it. Seeing this scene on the stage, Pei Shaoqing said lightly, "This kick is very powerful. Fighting with it is like fighting against the whole world. It is boundless and endless." So powerful? Qiu Ruotong, who seemed to be very close to Pei Shaoqing, asked in surprise. If it was not so, I would not have lost so easily. There was no way for me to resist at all. Only Meng Chong can break this force. Qiu Ruotong thought that Yi Chen could also do it, but she did not say it out loud. After all, she would find out soon. One kick to move the wind and clouds. A thunderous roar was heard. Tai Feng slightly leaned his upper body back and threw out a kick. He had turned the power of the world into his own and attacked Yi Chen's half of the body. Pop! The calm aura that Yi Chen had created earlier had been broken, and a ferocious airflow swept over with an even more terrifying aura, causing many inner sanctum disciples to lose their footing, and their hearts were filled with shock. Break! Whoosh! In the void, the pure and bright sword chi flashed and disappeared. The momentum was like a deflated balloon, collapsing on itself. Senior brother Tai Feng's momentum has been broken. Senior brother Yi Chen is indeed powerful. The eyes of the inner disciples who supported Yi Chen lit up. It seems like the half-step sword intent is more powerful. Senior brother Yi Chen is really a godly person. One sword and one person, he can even cut through the great momentum. On the VIP seats, the green sky swordsman, Shen Lang, said solemnly, "This kid actually possesses the ability to sever the power of nothingness. I'm afraid he's not far from comprehending the true sword intent." Tai Feng's naive expression disappeared as he stared at Yi Chen with a serious expression. Yi Chen was the first person who had given him endless pressure ever since he had comprehended the general trend. In front of Yi Chen, the so-called general trend could not even withstand a single blow. It seemed like he could only attack with brute force. Changing wind and cloud. Tai Feng's entire body rose up from the ground. All of the general trend had been infused into his leg power, attacking towards Yi Chen one after another. His body was light and agile, and his leg power was as heavy as a mountain. The airflow around Yi Chen's body surged, and when those countless leg powers landed on him, it seemed like the mountains were collapsing and the earth was cracking. Yi Chen was in the middle of it all, but his expression was calm. Without any hesitation, he waved his hidden cloud sword continuously, and within a blink of an eye, he had thrown out dozens of sword attacks. Each sword attack would shoot out a 3-meter-long thick sword chi. The sword chi was so sharp that it seemed like it was going to tear the space in front of it apart. Swoosh, 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 beams of sword chi shot up into the sky, cleanly cutting through the leg power. It was so sharp that no one could stop it. Tai Feng's facial expression suddenly changed. Jin Qi surged out of his body, and his leg power became even stronger. Wave after wave of Jin Qi collided with the platform's surface, causing the platform to crack and collapse, and the stone pillars to collapse. Many people had started to support Yi Chen on the way, because Yi Chen's sword attack had been so brilliant, and it had easily broken Tai Feng's momentum. Now, seeing Tai Feng's power, they couldn't help but worry about Yi Chen. No matter how powerful the sword chi was, it was still limited, and how could it fight against the endless momentum? Break! At this critical moment, Yi Chen didn't hold back anymore. The hidden cloud sword seemed to be moving slowly, but it was actually moving very fast. The moment the tip of the sword reached its peak, the half-step sword intent burst out. Clang, 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 caught off guard, the great swords around the inner disciples' waists all flew out of their scabbards and merged with Yi Chen's sword aura. With a sharp aura that was enough to cut through a mountain, the swords rushed towards Tai Feng, who was in the air. Clang! A mountain cracking sound arose. Tai Feng's leg power was broken, and he was sent flying backwards while vomiting blood. What a terrifying sword power, it even took away our swords. In the future, if any sword artist encounters Brother Yi Chen, he or she will be at a disadvantage. The half-step sword intent is too powerful, and the swords won't be under his control. Ji Xuan came out of the Emerald Martial Palace not long ago, and our Sky Cloud Martial School also has Brother Yi Chen. But unfortunately, none of them can be compared with young Master Emerald. Standing on the ruined platform, Yi Chen waved the hidden cloud sword in his hand. Dozens of swords seemed to be attracted by an invisible force, and they all fell down, neatly inserted into the ground in front of the inner disciples, forming a row. This is mine. And mine. All the inner disciples who used swords walked up and pulled out their own swords. Tai Feng landed on the ground, and said in admiration, "That last sword attack was brilliant. I didn't expect the half-step sword intent to be so powerful." Yi Chen smiled lightly, "Your leg power is also very powerful. If it was a little bit more powerful, even I wouldn't be able to defeat you." Hehe, the general trend of Taishu is very mysterious, and I only learned it by chance. I won't be able to make a breakthrough in 1 or 2 years, so I can only try to improve my skills. But you have to be careful of Meng Chong, his blade power is too powerful, even the half-step sword intent seems to be unable to defeat him. Indeed. Yi Chen nodded. In front of absolute power, fancy skills were useless. His current half-step sword intent was a bit flashy, and could not be compared to the real sword intent. After Tai Feng's defeat, only Blood Shadow Blade Meng Chong and Yi Chen were left. In the crowd's eyes, the other disciples had no chance to compete for the first place, and the winner could only be one of them. After the 9th round, there were only 6 rounds left in the 10th round. The next 6 rounds were extremely intense. Some of the inner disciples who had a chance to compete for the top 10 were not afraid of the top 10 inner disciples, so they all used their most powerful skills to fight against the top 10 inner disciples. Unfortunately, the gap between their fighting power was too huge. Even if they tried their best, it would be useless. The 10th round had ended. Meng Chong and Yi Chen were tied for the first place, with 20 points. Li Yunping had won 1 round, so he had 19 points, ranked 3rd. Yi Qin and Tai Feng had lost 1 round each, so they had 18 points, ranked 4th. Xiao Yi had lost 1 round and drawn 1 round, so he had 17 points, ranked 6th. Zhou Rua, Pei Shaoqing, Ghost Sword Li Kuang, and Qiu Ruodong were ranked 6th. There were 3 people who had been eliminated from the ranking: Feng Ping, Dong Haohua, and Song Fei. None of them had more than 15 points. Chapter 114. No matter what, the new top 10 inner disciples had been born, and the previous one had become a thing of the past. This year, the most eye-catching disciples were without a doubt Li Yun, Tai Feng, and Yi Chen. The 3 of them had stood out from hundreds of inner disciples. They had overcome all kinds of obstacles along the way, and each of them had performed their best martial arts. Towards the end, they had even defeated a few of the top 10 inner disciples of the last year. Among the 3, Yi Chen was the most talented one. With only the peak of the mid-condensing reality realm, he had won all his battles without losing a single one. He had also learned the half-step sword intent, which was the dream of every sword artist. His comprehensive ability was the best among the young generation of the Sky Cloud Martial School, and he was almost as famous as the core disciples. Of course, becoming one of the top 10 inner disciples was not the end of it. Next was the ranking competition. The ranking competition seemed complicated, but it was actually very simple. That was, the contestants would have to fight against the other 9 disciples one by one. As for those who had already fought against each other, the points would be calculated according to the results. For example, Yi Chen had beaten Feng Ping, Dong Haohua and Tai Feng, so he had 6 points. He still had to fight against the other 6 disciples, including the Blood Shadow Blade, Meng Chong. For this competition, the leaders of the Sky Cloud Martial School had prepared more than 500 yuan chi pellets. Every disciple who participated in the competition could take one. After taking the yuan chi pellet, not only would they feel energetic, they would also be able to recover from minor injuries. After resting for about half an hour, the head elder saw that all 10 of them were full of energy, so he announced the start of the competition. Yi Chen's first opponent was the Rainbow Sword, Qiu Ruodong, but she gave up. After all, everyone knew how powerful Yi Chen was, so there was no need to waste any more time. The second opponent was Pei Shaoqing, who also gave up. The third opponent was the Peach Hand, Zhou Rua. Although I don't have much hope, I still want to fight against you. Zhou Rua, who had a beautiful face, lightly landed on the stage. Yi Chen nodded and said, "Let's start." Pa! Right from the start, Zhou Rua used all of her power. The peach-colored Jinqi around her body burst out, attacking towards Yi Chen like a thunderbolt. It was obviously a big change from her previous casual fighting style. Before the palm power exploded, the stone pillar behind Yi Chen had already been shattered. What a domineering palm energy! A strange look flashed through Yi Chen's eyes. Without any hesitation, he directly waved his sword, which contained the half-step sword intent. Bang! Under the effect of the half-step sword intent, Yi Chen's attack was incomparably condensed. With only one attack, he had broken through Zhou Rua's palm power. With a wave of her hand, Zhou Rua set up a layer of peach-red qi barrier in front of her, and her whole body was sent flying. Yi Chen followed up with another slash. Zhou Rua gritted her teeth. If this move still can't do anything to you, I'll admit defeat. As she spoke, Zhou Ruo quickly formed a seal with her hands. Wave after wave of true energy frantically gathered in her hands. In the end, it transformed into a pink true energy bird. The bird spread its wings and shot out like a bolt of red lightning, unable to be seen by the naked eye. So fast! I didn't expect senior sister Zhou Ruo to have hidden her trump card as well. The spectating inner disciples exclaimed. Iron Fan Yi Qing laughed bitterly. His opponent did not use this move when they fought. Of course, he also had his own ultimate move that he had not used. His opponent should know this. The huge Xinqi bird arrived in a blink of an eye. It was about to hit Yi Chen. Yi Chen looked calm. The others might not be able to see the trajectory of the huge Xinqi bird, but he could. It was all thanks to his powerful soul power. A silver line flashed through the air. The hidden cloud sword in Yi Chen's hand had pointed at the weakest spot of the huge Xinqi bird. All of a sudden, the huge Xinqi bird became extremely unstable. With a popping sound, it disappeared into thin air. Zhou Ruo was shocked by Yi Chen's sword art. The bluebird seal was so fast, but it was still hit by his sword. Furthermore, it was the weakest spot of the bird. What kind of insight and control did he have? With a bitter smile, Zhou Ruo said, I have to admit, only you can compete with Meng Chong. I lost. The next battle was not Yi Chen's, but Li Yun's. After all, continuous battles would take a lot of energy, and it would have a huge impact on the battle. Plus, Yi Chen's next opponent was Xiao Yi, who would definitely not admit defeat. It would be a tough battle for sure. Qiu Ruodong knew that she would not be able to compete with any one of the 10 people, but she still admitted defeat. Pei Shaoqing and Li Yun started fighting. After exchanging dozens of moves, Li Yun executed the ultimate skill of Sword Light Division. 14 sword lights shot out in a row. One of the sword lights had 2 layers of force, one bright and one dark. He managed to defeat Pei Shaoqing without any mishaps. After that, it was the battle between Tai Feng and Yi Qing. The two of them were evenly matched. After hundreds of attacks, there was no clear winner. However, towards the end of the battle, Tai Feng, who had the support of his power, was getting more and more powerful. Yi Qing kept performing his ultimate skills, but he still could not make a comeback. He had no choice but to admit defeat. If the battle continued, he would definitely lose. One after another, the battles started and ended. Soon, it was Blood Shadow Blade Meng Chong's turn. His opponent was Li Yun. Li Yun did not waste any time. He attacked immediately. With a wave of his hand, 14 sword lights were shot out. Break! Meng Chong's body moved along with his blade. The blood-red blade light was unstoppable. It easily shattered the incoming sword lights. As for that bright and dark sword light, it was instantly shattered by his fist. Li Yun yelled. Another 3 sword lights were shot out. These 3 sword lights were indeed huge. They almost covered half of the platform. They were flying towards Meng Chong in a triangular formation. Meng Chong did not dare to be careless. The blood-red light shot out from both of his arms and into his long blade. He had broken the incoming sword lights 3 times in a row. After that, he threw a punch at Li Yun's protective Xinqi layer. Crackle! Blood-red lightning flashed. Li Yun's mouth was bleeding. He was thrown off the platform. Meng Chong's thunder fist is getting more and more powerful. Yi Qing thought to himself. Meng Chong got off the platform. Yi Chen and Xiao Yi got on the platform. If you want to challenge Meng Chong, you will have to get past me first. Xiao Ye's upper body bent, a misty green light shone, 2 gigantic Xinqi arms extended out from his shoulders, one green and one green. The green one was a little illusory, the green one had chi flow rising, like a burning flame. Just like a giant, Xiao Yi rushed towards Yi Chen with big steps, throwing out a punch. Tyrannical rampage. Out of everyone's expectation, Yi Chen did not use his sword skill. He made a fist with his left hand and threw out a punch. Puff! 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 Under Xiao Ye's shocked gaze, the blue Jin Qi arm was broken into pieces. It turned into the purest Yuan Qi and disappeared in the air. Lose! Xiao Yi did not back off. He threw out an even more powerful green Jin Qi arm from his left shoulder. He wanted to defeat Yi Chen directly. Yi Chen yelled coldly, dominating one direction. Boom! He threw out a punch with a black light. The qi behind him was sucked into it. It was just like Tai Feng's power. It clashed with Xiao Ye's green Jin Qi arm. Thump thump thump, Xiao Yi took a few steps back. The green Jin Qi arm was showing signs of collapsing. He was really shocked. The green Jin Qi arm was the evolved version of the blue Jin Qi arm. Its power was more than 50% stronger, but it couldn't even block a punch from his opponent. How was he supposed to fight? The green Jin Qi arm merged with his body. Xiao Yi waved his hand. I'm done. You are the best. Then he turned and walked off the platform. Chapter 115. As long as he beats Brother Yi Qing, it will be the battle between Brother Meng Chong and Brother Yi Chen. Brother Yi Qing should not be able to beat Brother Yi Chen. After all, he lost to Brother Tai Feng. You're right. If Brother Meng Chong is still the champion this year, he probably won't get any good rewards. After all, last time he was rewarded with a low-rank Earth Realm Fist Art, Shocking Thunder Fist. But if Brother Yi Chen wins, he will definitely get a low-rank Earth Realm Martial Art. While the crowd was talking, the competition continued. In fact, although the ranking was still uncertain, it was already clear that the first and second place would be either Meng Chong or Yi Chen. The third to fifth place would be Tai Feng, Xiao Yi and Yi Qing. The sixth to ninth place would be Zhou Rua, Li Yun, Li Kuang and Pei Shaoqing. Qiu Ruodong would be the last. In the first round, Li Yun lost to Li Kuang. In the second round, Pei Shaoqing lost to Zhou Rua. In the third round, Yi Qing lost to Xiao Yi. In the ninth round, Meng Chong walked onto the stage. Tai Feng shook his head. I am not his opponent. I give up. Boom! The crowd on the martial field suddenly exploded. Tai Feng had given up, which meant that Meng Chong would fight against Yi Chen in advance. This would undoubtedly be the most anticipated battle of the day. On the east side of the VIP seats, there was a row of teenagers. The oldest among them was only 18 or 19 years old, while the youngest was only 16 or 17. They were all wearing different clothes, but all of them had the unique cloud pattern of the Sky Cloud Martial School on their sleeves. The auras of this group of people were pure and vast. Nearly half of them could contend with Blood Shadow Saber Meng Chong. Some of them even far surpassed Meng Chong. They sat there and talked cheerfully. They were not affected by the atmosphere at all. They gave off an unfathomable pressure. Jingju, who do you think will win? Among them, a handsome teenager asked the teenager with a cold expression. The cold teenager said indifferently, boring. The handsome teenager smiled bitterly, is there a need to be so cold? He turned around and asked the teenager in blue, Brother Luo, what do you think? The teenager in blue was indeed the second disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School, Luo Hanshan. He lowered his eyes, thought for a while and said, I think it will be Yi Chen. Oh, why is that? The other person beside him looked surprised. Luo Hanshan said, Meng Chong is like a sharp blade that can cut through anything. However, if it's too sharp, it'll break easily, which makes it less beautiful. But Yi Chen is like a vast lake, immeasurably deep. Since the beginning of the competition, he has been calm and unruffled. Thus, I deduced that it would be a long battle from the start. In the end, Yi Chen would be the one to persevere. Of course, speculations are just speculations after all. They can't be trusted. If we want to determine the victor, we'll have to fight. The handsome youth smiled and said, Senior Brother Luo's analytical ability has always been very strong, but I feel the same way. Whether the two of them will win will depend on the later stages. The girl in white, who was ranked 8th, suddenly said, Meng Chong will lose. The first person in line was a slightly older girl with plum blossom embroidery on her clothes. She mocked, Su Jing, this is the first time I've seen your evaluation. Su Jing didn't say anything. The other people looked at Su Jing with different expressions, some of them were nervous, some of them were admiring her. She had just become a core disciple last year, but now she was ranked 8th. Also, it seemed that she had not used all of her power to increase her rank. Otherwise, it would not be impossible for her to be in the top 5. From time to time, the inner disciples below the VIP seats would turn around and take a glance at her. They thought to themselves, this seat is for core disciples. If I can sit in this seat one day, how glorious would that be? 5 of the 10 platforms had already been destroyed. Yi Chen and Meng Chong were standing opposite each other on the platform that seemed to be relatively intact, staring at each other without blinking their eyes. Swoosh! Meng Chong took out his long blade and launched the first attack. A sharp blood-red blade light sliced through the air, hacking towards Yi Chen, who was not far away. Clang! No one knew when Yi Chen had also pulled out his sword. He waved out a stream of sword chi to block the incoming blade light. Take another 10 attacks. Meng Chong's expression was wild. The long blade in his hand was like a wild horse that had just run away from its reins. He crazily waved his blade towards Meng Chong. Ding, 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 all of a sudden, the entire platform was filled with bright sword chi and blood-red blade light. Their figures had already been completely covered by the light, and could not be seen by the naked eye. Shoo! Shoo! The two of them were blown back, and once again, they faced each other. Awesome! Among all the inner disciples, you are the only one who can take 11 attacks from me with all of my power. It had been a long time since Meng Chong had felt this good. Yi Chen's power had made his blood boil, and he was filled with the desire to fight. If he could defeat Yi Chen, he would definitely be able to reach the next level. Yi Chen said, let's continue. Alright, let's continue. As soon as they finished talking, their bodies had already collided. The blood-red blade light and the sword chi crisscrossed, fighting against each other. Soon, the platform was destroyed as well. Off the platform, all of the inner disciples were shocked. Apart from the first collision, it was impossible to tell who was fighting who had the upper hand, and who was at a disadvantage. All that could be seen was that the saber was faster than the previous one, and the sword was sharper than the previous one. Towards the end, the shockwave formed by the collision of the sword chi and the saber light was even more terrifying, destroying one platform after another nearby. The figures of the two could no longer be seen, and only the sword chi and the saber light could be seen sweeping from one platform to another, from the ground to the air, and from the air to the platform ruins. They were everywhere, and everywhere was the site of the battle. 100 attacks. 200 attacks. 300 attacks. 500 attacks. The two of them had already exchanged over 500 attacks, but there was still no clear winner. Yi Chen's half-step sword intent could not do anything to Meng Chong's blade power, and Meng Chong's fast blade power could not do anything to Yi Chen either. At this point it was no longer a competition of power, but a competition of willpower and endurance. Whoever could last longer would be the winner. 1,000 attacks. No winner has been decided yet. Terrifying. An inner disciple looked at the sky. Right then, the sun was setting, and the bright afterglow was shining on the martial field, making the battle look even more intense. He could not help but gasp. Yeah! It would be amazing if the others could block 10 attacks from Brother Meng Chong, but Brother Yi Chen had already exchanged over 1,000 attacks with him. Both of them seemed to have the upper hand. I wonder who will have the last laugh. All of a sudden, the blood-red blade light and the bright sword chi collided with each other, and then shot up into the sky. Waves of powerful shockwaves spread out in all directions, which even caused the platform to collapse. The crowd looked over and saw that Yi Chen's sword had blocked Meng Chong's long blade, and the two of them were frozen there. World-shocking thunder. Meng Chong clenched his left hand into a fist and threw it towards Yi Chen's head. Yi Chen sneered and threw out his left fist, which was shining with a black light. Crack! Like a thunderclap, both of them were sent flying backwards. Again. With the protection of the pure jade body boosting spell, Yi Chen stomped on the platform behind him and shot towards Meng Chong like an arrow. Meng Chong was not scared at all, he threw out another punch. Boom! The two of them moved away from each other as soon as they made contact. There was a faint trace of blood on the corner of Meng Chong's mouth. On the VIP seats of the core disciples, Luo Hanshan sighed and said, Yi Chen has won, Meng Chong is still slightly weaker than him. It is not easy for him to be able to fight until now. But this Yi Chen is very powerful. He has been winning all the time, even Meng Chong could not stop his rise. Chapter 116. Again. A blood-red light burst out from Meng Chong's body as he threw out a punch towards Yi Chen along with crackling thunder and lightning. It seemed like he was determined to win or die trying. Sizzle, 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 as Meng Chong threw out his punch, Yi Chen could feel a shocking amount of electricity gathering in his body. His skin felt numb, and all of his hairs were standing up. He knew that he could not afford to be hit by that punch, otherwise even the pure jade body boosting spell would not be able to protect him. Thunder and lightning had always been able to ignore defense. Dominating the king. The third movement of the Tyrant Fist art was thrown out. A dense black light was brought out by the fist power, forming an umbrella in front of Yi Chen, blocking out the attack of the electricity. Boom! The broken platform under their feet was split into two. One half was made up of electricity, while the other half was made up of scattered black light. Meng Chong puked out a mouthful of blood, which was evaporated in the air by the electricity. He was blown out for hundreds of meters, and finally landed heavily on the marble floor. Crack! The floor cracked under Meng Chong's feet. On the other side, Yi Chen was also blown out for 70 to 80 meters, leaving a crack on the floor. It was clear who would win. Looking down at his bare right arm, Yi Chen was shocked. If he had not performed the third movement of the Tyrant Fist art, he would not have been able to win so easily. The Tyrant Fist art was divided into 4 movements. The first style was called Tyrannical Rampage. It belonged to the aggressive type, and it could devour the opponent's chi gene for its own use. However, it could only be used against opponents who were slightly weaker than the user. Against opponents who were stronger than the user, the devouring effect could not be used. The second movement was called Dominating the World. It belonged to the defensive type. When the opponent attacked, it could absorb the yuan qi of the surrounding space and merge it into the fist power. The third movement was called Dominating the King. It belonged to the offensive and defensive type. When the punch was thrown out, an umbrella-shaped black light would form a defensive shield, blocking out the opponent's chi. At the same time, his own fist power would be able to attack the opponent without any hindrance. As for the strongest fourth move, Tyrannical Millennium, Yi Chen currently did not have enough Jin Qi to support it. Unless he was in a life or death situation, he absolutely could not use it. Otherwise, if he used up too much Jin Qi, he would not have the strength to protect himself. Letting out a mouthful of turbid air, Yi Chen raised his head and looked at Meng Chong. Meng Chong stabbed the long blade in his left hand into the ground. He grinned and said, "Great. Today, you are more skilled than me. However, we still have a long way to go. Let's see who will have the last laugh. I'll wait for you." Although that was what he said, Yi Chen didn't really care about it. Up until now, no one who had been surpassed by him had ever surpassed him, just like Wang Gang, Wu Zongming, Huang Bingwen, Zhang Haoren and so on. If he was surpassed by someone else, then how could he even talk about becoming more powerful? How could he even talk about catching up with the top 4 young masters, and walk out of the Windy Nation and into the world? The world was way too big. The path of a martial artist was like sailing a boat against the current. If one did not keep moving forward, one would fall behind. If one day he was surpassed by someone else, then he would have to reflect on himself. Once Meng Chong was defeated, Yi Chen would definitely become the #1 inner disciple. The other people who had not fought against him before would not be able to stop him anymore. The audience and the VIP seats were all talking about this. Luo Hanshan said, "The most official competition in our school is the inner disciple ranking competition. Once you become one of the top 10 inner disciples, you will be qualified to challenge core disciples and replace them. I think Yi Chen and Meng Chong are already at the top of the core disciples. Tai Feng and Xiao Yi are also not bad. You guys should be careful." A few core disciples who were ranked at the bottom said, "Brother Luo, don't worry. We did not waste this year either. We will show them how powerful we are." Indeed, except for that Yi Chen and Meng Chong, who are a bit tricky, the others will have to ask me first if I want to be a core disciple or not. Luo Hanshan smiled. The number of core disciples in the Sky Cloud Martial School had always been maintained at 24. If one of them became a core disciple, one of them would have to leave. No one wanted to lose their core disciple status. In the following days, it would definitely be a fierce competition. As for himself, he would also challenge the hidden fragrance sword Zhu Mei when the time was right. Luo Hanshan turned his head and glanced at the beautiful girl who had plum blossom embroidery on her clothes. When the last ray of light of the sunset shone on the horizon, the ranking competition was finally over. According to the ranking, the first place was Yi Chen, who had a perfect winning record. He had defeated 9 people, so he had 18 points. The second place was Meng Chong with 16 points, the third place was Tai Feng with 14 points, the fourth place was Xiao Yi with 12 points, the fifth place was Yi Qing with 10 points, the sixth place was Zhou Rua with 8 points, the seventh place was Li Kuang with 6 points, the eighth place was Li Yun with 4 points, the ninth place was Pei Shaoqing with 2 points, and the 10th place was Qiu Ruodong with 0 points. When the ranking was announced, Yi Tianhao laughed out loud and said, "Chen is now the #1 inner disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School. He is the #1 genius in the history of our Yi family. The third leader of the Yi family, Yi Tang and Yi Xian, no one can be compared with him." Shen Yuqing said in an annoyed tone, "Look at you, people go to higher places, water flows to lower places. If Chen wants to be compared, he should be compared with the core disciples of those famous martial institutions. Don't make him look bad." "Hee, I'm just happy." Many important people around them cupped their hands and said, "Congratulations. Leader Yi, your son has already mastered the half-step sword intent at such a young age, he will definitely soar into the sky in the future. Leader Yi, if we have the chance, let's have a drink. Our son is not good enough, Leader Yi, you should ask your son to teach him a lesson." Yi Tianhao was in a good mood, he said, "Not at all, not at all. If you are willing to give me face, please find some time to visit our Yi family, I will definitely welcome you." Of course, of course. The other important people all had their own thoughts, but no matter what they thought, Yi Chen's name had become really famous after today. 16 years old, he had mastered the half-step sword intent. Not to mention the Windy Nation, even in the entire South Shuo region, he would not be bad. The only thing he was lacking was his cultivation. Of course, some people were looking forward to Yi Chen's growth, while some were planning to nip him in the bud. Zhu Liang was not the only one. For them, it was very easy to kill a genius, but once this genius grew up, it would not be that easy. They had to kill him as soon as possible. The head elder of the Sky Cloud Martial School slowly stood up. The inner disciple ranking competition has come to an end. Now, the rewards will be given out. The 7th to 10th place will be rewarded with 300 low-rank soul stones, the 4th to the 6th place will be rewarded with 600 low-rank soul stones, the 2nd to the 3rd place will be rewarded with 1000 low-rank soul stones, the 1st place will be rewarded with 2000 low-rank soul stones and a low-rank Earth Realm martial art. Besides these, according to the decision made by the Elder Council, the #1 inner disciple will go to the Emerald Martial Palace with the congratulatory team on the 9th of July. Going to the Emerald Martial Palace, that is a place to broaden one's horizons. All the disciples who are able to go there are not simple. At that time, all the elite martial institutions will definitely gather there, such as the top 4 child, the top disciples among the core disciples. I'm afraid it will not be that easy. All the martial institutions will definitely compete with each other. I heard that the top 10 inner disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace are all as powerful as the core disciples of the Sky Cloud Martial School. No wonder they decided to let Yi Chen go with them. Yeah! Even if Yi Chen is not as powerful as them, with only his half-step sword intent, he will still be able to make the Sky Cloud Martial School look good. I see. How could the Elder Council's plan be hidden from the powerful figures who were always scheming against each other? Chapter 117. 2000 low-rank soul stones and a low-rank earth realm martial art. If Yi Chen said he was not tempted, he would be lying. 2000 low-rank soul stones would be worth 8 to 900,000 gold in the Northwest Auction House, and a low-rank earth realm martial art could be sold for millions of gold. Most of the small families in the Windy Nation might not be able to buy one even if they sold all their assets. Of course, the potential of the number one inner disciple was indeed worth this price, and the martial institutions did not lack martial arts. After all, a martial institution that had hundreds of years of history, it would be unreasonable for them not to have some martial arts. However, Yi Chen also knew that even if an outsider offered 10 million gold, the top management of the martial institution would not agree to sell a martial art. Martial arts were not to be shared with outsiders. However, after hearing the latter part of the message, Yi Chen paused a bit. Follow the congratulatory team to the Emerald Martial Palace in 1 month? This was out of his expectation, but he did not care too much about it. Whether he went or not, it was all arranged by the top management. All he needed to do was to follow. The Silent Hills. In a vast mountain range, the fog never dissipated, and there was miasma everywhere. Deep in the mountains, there were often beast roars that could shake people's hearts. The sun was hanging high in the sky, and the golden light was blocked out by the fog. At first glance, there were colorful lights everywhere, bright and creepy. This was deep in the Silent Hills, and the natural yuan qi was especially rich. However, because of the miasma, warriors could not absorb it, or else they would go crazy. On a small hill that was split open by something, Yi Chen stood with his hands behind his back, with an ancient-looking longsword hanging on his waist. He looked down and saw that in the fog hundreds of meters away, 2 huge shadows were colliding with each other from time to time, making earth-shaking noises. A whoa! A horrifying roar was heard. Dozens of trees in front of him were knocked down, and a house-sized demonic wolf was blown towards him. The demonic wolf had no fur, and its body was covered with sharp thorns, which made its body 3 times bigger, and its blood-red pupils looked like it was about to drip blood. Bramble Demonic Wolf, top rank 4 beast. No matter how hard the wind blew, Yi Chen's body did not move, only his clothes were fluttering. Dong 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 dong, the ground shook, and a silver-gray demonic bull that was even bigger than the Bramble Demon Wolf walked out of the mist step by step. Its cold and merciless eyes first locked on the Bramble Demon Wolf, and then looked at where Yi Chen was. Moo! The silver-gray demonic bull roared into the sky, and the mist twisted violently. Electric currents appeared on the surface of the nearby fallen leaves, burning them into nothingness. Yi Chen was slightly surprised. It was actually a rare silver electric demon bull. This was an existence even more dangerous than the Bramble Demon Wolf. No wonder the Bramble Demon Wolf couldn't beat it. The 2 demonic beasts were the size of a house. Their demonic aura soared to the sky, stirring up terrifying whirlwinds. 2 peak level 4 demonic beasts should be good for training. If the others knew what Yi Chen was thinking, they would definitely say that he was just talking nonsense. Demonic beasts were already much more powerful than warriors of the same level. Even the most talented warrior might not be able to win against a demonic beast, not to mention 2 top rank for demonic beasts, which were equivalent to peak level late condensing reality realm warriors. The Bramble Demon Wolf looked at the silver electric demonic bull in fear. It lowered its body slightly. Its instinct told it that it had to kill any human that came in here. But the silver electric demonic bull in front of it was much more dangerous than this human. If it was not careful, it would be killed. Roar! 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 The bramble demon wolf roared at the silver electric demonic bull, as if it was sending some kind of message. After a while, the silver electric demonic bull let out an electric current from its nose. It stomped on the ground twice, and unexpectedly rushed out. Shoo! The silver electric demonic bull's huge body did not slow it down. Like a thick silver electric light, it rushed towards Yi Chen, who was on the hill. At the same time, the bramble demon wolf also attacked Yi Chen, its body rammed towards the hill. Piss off! Clang! The hidden cloud sword was unsheathed, and its momentum was unpredictable. It easily hit the silver electric demonic bull's body. The silver electric demonic bull's fierce eyes were filled with shock. Its huge body flew back, smashing many old vines that were full of ancient trees. Boom! The hill under its feet collapsed, and the bramble demon wolf jumped out from the rubble. It opened its mouth and spat out a cloud of black air mixed with ice. Yi Chen's feet lightly touched the rubble that had not yet fallen, and his body rose straight up. A sword chi, like a dragon from the 9 heavens, crazily shot down towards the bramble demon wolf. The bramble demon wolf was the same as the silver electric demonic bull. It did not expect Yi Chen's sword art to be so powerful. Its body flipped in the air and crashed into the flying boulders to avoid the sharp sword chi. Cloud impermanence, startling cloud, where do you think you can hide? With one punch, the bramble demon wolf's black air was shattered by the fist energy. The countless ice cubes were shattered by the fist energy, turning into ice shards that sprinkled down from the sky. Below, the sword chi, which was originally moving in a straight line, twisted a few times. Unexpectedly, like the clouds in the sky, it had no form, and slashed at the back of the bramble demon wolf. Crack! A few thorns were cut down, and the bramble demon wolf lost its balance and fell heavily on the ground, creating a huge pit. Crack! Silver lightning shot out from the side. It was the silver electric demonic bull that did not give up. Its speed was like lightning, and its sound was like thunder. It was as fast as lightning, burning the air in front of it into a vacuum. Startling cloud! Yi Chen waved out a thick sword chi in the air. The sword chi was extremely aggressive. Wherever it went, the air was swept away, filled with endless explosive power. The silver electric demonic bull opened its mouth and spat out a ball of lightning, which clashed with the sword chi. Crack! Crack! The lightning was all broken, and the sword chi slashed on the silver electric demonic bull's forehead, leaving a deep sword mark that could reach the bone, and blood was flowing out. In the next moment, the silver electric demon cow lost its balance and fell headfirst to the ground, causing it to shake incessantly. Even the electricity around its body leaked out, causing the burnt ground to crack and turn black. Clumps of fertile weeds were burned to ashes. Suddenly climbing up from the ground, the silver electric demonic bull looked at Yi Chen with fear, not daring to attack again. Although its defense was very strong, it was not strong enough to ignore the sword chi. If it got hit too much, it would still be in danger. On the side, the bramble demon wolf could not help but lean towards the silver electric demonic bull, as if it was ready to join forces with it to attack and kill this powerful human. Earthrealm low-rank sword art, indeed powerful. Lightly landing on an ancient tree, Yi Chen looked down at the sword body and thought to himself. It had been more than half a month since the end of the ranking competition. Half a month ago, Yi Chen chose a sword art from many Earthrealm low-rank martial arts, called the Startling Cloud Sword Art. The clouds were unpredictable, and so was the Startling Cloud Sword Art. Every movement was full of changes, and even the cultivator could not completely control it, not to mention the opponent. In addition, the Startling Cloud Sword Art was also a very aggressive sword art. Once the sword was thrown out, the wind would stop and the clouds would be startled. Its lethality was extremely horrifying, and it was many times more powerful and faster than the lone peak of 13 swords. After training it, Yi Chen went to the Silent Hills alone, wanting to test the power of the sword art on the beasts. This battle was indeed powerful. Chapter 118. Not far away, the silver electric demonic cow and the bramble demon wolf roared at the same time, attacking towards Yi Chen from both sides. One of them was as fast as lightning, while the other one was as agile as a black smoke. Boom! The ancient tree was uprooted, and a huge amount of soil was sent flying in the air. Yi Chen jumped into the air, and threw out a sword chi backhandedly. Puff! A deep sword mark appeared on the bramble demon wolf's back leg, and its body quickly fell onto the ground. It slid hundreds of meters away due to the inertia, and finally stopped after hitting another ancient tree. Standing up, the bramble demon wolf shook its dizzy head, and stared at Yi Chen with a slight fear in its eyes. This human didn't seem to be very powerful, but up until now, it and the silver electric demonic cow still couldn't do anything to him. Instead, it was covered in dust, and its back leg was injured. If this continued, it and the silver electric demonic cow would probably be killed before they could kill Yi Chen. The silver electric demonic cow also wanted to retreat, but the bramble demon wolf hadn't retreated yet, so how could it retreat? I have almost understood the power of the sky cloud sword art. Now it's time to take care of them. Before, Yi Chen didn't use his half-step sword intent, and those sword chi were only normal sword chi. Turning around, Yi Chen waved his sword twice, and two sword chi that had been infused with the half-step sword intent were thrown out. Puff! Puff! A sword hole appeared on the foreheads of the silver electric demonic cow and the bramble demon wolf respectively. Their huge bodies fell heavily onto the ground, and no longer breathing. Without the protection of the beast chi, the bodies of the demonic beasts weren't as hard as expected, and were easily cut open. Inside each body was a bowl-sized pellet. The pellet of a top-rank 4 demonic beast was worth over 10,000 gold, and was put into Yi Chen's storage ring by Yi Chen. After that, some valuable demonic beast materials were also collected by Yi Chen. After that, Yi Chen stood up straight and looked at the deepest part of the Silent Hills. That was a true forbidden area. A few decades ago, a powerful force had sent experts to the depths to search for some rare and precious herbs. Unfortunately, they encountered a level 7 demonic beast, the ghost-faced demonic cow. Out of more than 100 people, only one person managed to escape, but he died a few days later. The reason was that the demonic chi in his body was too strong, and he died of madness. Since then, no one dared to enter. A rank 7 demonic beast. Yi Chen could not imagine it at all, since it was equivalent to an astral-reaching realm warrior. Not to mention Yi Chen, even the leaders of the top 5 martial institutions would not be able to handle a single attack from it. But, it was hard to say whether it was true or not, since besides the rumors, no one had actually seen it with their own eyes. The only survivor from decades ago had already gone insane when he came out. Shaking his head, Yi Chen leaned to the side and leaped onto an ancient tree that was over 100 feet tall. With a few flashes, he disappeared without a trace. Not long after Yi Chen left, a figure shot through the mist. Pap! Lightly stepping on the ground, the middle-aged man saw the 2 demonic beast corpses lying on the ground. He couldn't help but curse, "I finally found out where this brat went." Who would have thought that he would go to the deepest part of the Silent Hills? The mist here is so thick that people can't even look at it directly. You can't tell anything from 100 steps away. Otherwise, how could I let him leave safely? I would have killed him on the spot. This man was indeed Zhu Liang, the middle-aged man who had watched the inner disciple ranking competition of the Sky Cloud Martial School half a month ago. At the same time, he was also the intelligence master of the Purple Sun Martial School. He had sent his warriors to guard the bottom of the Windy Mountain, ready to kill Yi Chen the moment he went out alone. However, after Yi Chen went down the mountain, he went straight into the Silent Hills. By the time Zhu Liang heard the news, it was already too late. He could only follow and try his luck to see if he could run into Yi Chen. "Brat, you sure are lucky. But next time, you will die for sure." Zhu Liang's eyes were filled with killing intent. Roar! Right at this moment, a majestic roar sounded. Following that, the sky suddenly darkened. Dark clouds covered the sky, covering the radiance of the fiery sun. Such a powerful beast chi. It is at least a level 6 beast. Zhu Liang's face was full of fear. He hurried to run away. Far away. A beam of black light that was as thick as a water bucket shot out. Along the way, trees collapsed and mountains were pierced. The aftermath of the black light swept out a deep ravine that extended straight into the earth. The speed of the black light was too fast. Zhu Liang had no time to dodge. He roared, and a burning light suddenly rose from his body, protecting him tightly. Boom! The burning light was shattered. Zhu Liang was bleeding from every orifice, and his clothes were torn. Little bastard, this beast must have been provoked by you. Zhu Liang came without a sound, so he did not attract any beast's attention. Thinking about it, he realized that the battle between Yi Chen and the beast was too loud, and it had attracted more powerful beasts from the deeper parts of the Silent Hills. Zhu Liang had become the scapegoat. Without caring about his wounded body, Zhu Liang pushed his Jin Qi as hard as he could. His body turned into a burning light and shot far away. At the same time, he threw a dark red pellet into his mouth. After a while, the source of the black light finally appeared in the distance. Its huge body was standing in the middle of the hills. It was tens of meters tall, and it was a huge black python. If the mist was gone, people would see a shocking scene from the sky. A ravine stretched from dozens of miles away to here. In other words, the black light was shot from dozens of miles away. Such a terrifying range was unheard of. If it was a little closer, whether Zhu Liang could survive or not would be a problem. After all, the attack power of the black light would definitely be reduced if it was too far away. Seeing that the aura had disappeared, the black python bumped the mountain next to it with its huge head. The mountain shook a few times, and a few huge cracks appeared on the wall, making a cracking sound. Lowering its towering upper body, the giant black python slithered back in the direction it came from, crushing ancient trees one after another. Among the thousands of mountains, there was a magnificent valley. The valley was full of trees, and there were lakes of different sizes, just like the stars in the sky. In a yard next to a lake, 3 young girls were sitting and chatting. Sister Ji, have you heard about the inner disciple ranking competition that was held in the Sky Cloud Martial School half a month ago? The round-faced girl in green clothes suddenly asked. The beautiful girl with an aloof temperament said indifferently, "Is that so? I don't think there is anyone worth paying attention to in the Sky Cloud Martial School." The pretty girl next to her nodded and said, "The Sky Cloud Martial School is ranked last among the top 5 martial institutions. The top 10 inner disciples are only as powerful as the inner disciples of our Emerald Martial Palace, and the top 10 inner disciples of our Emerald Martial Palace are only as powerful as the core disciples in the Sky Cloud Martial School." The round-faced girl said, "I heard that there are 2 geniuses in this year's Sky Cloud Martial School, one is called Meng Chong, and the other is called Yi Chen. They are both at the top of the core disciples in the Sky Cloud Martial School." Yi Chen. The beautiful girl and the pretty girl looked at the round-faced girl in surprise. The round-faced girl asked confusedly, "What's wrong?" The pretty girl asked, "How is that Yi Chen? He beat Meng Chong, who was the top 10 inner disciples in the last year's Sky Cloud Martial School, and won the first place. I heard that he is very powerful." The beautiful girl was slightly surprised, but she didn't care about it anymore. So what if he was the top 10 inner disciples in the Sky Cloud Martial School? She was now one of the 4 core disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace. There was no comparison between them. The round-faced girl continued, that Yi Chen is not only very powerful, but he has also mastered the half-step sword intent. Right now, everyone in the Windy Nation is talking about him. What? The pretty girl and the beautiful girl couldn't believe it. They subconsciously thought that the 2 of them only had the same name, and could not be the Yi Chen they knew.